Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Let me get everything set up. Welcome to this event with Cristin Bishara and Trish Dollar for VIAL of Tears. I'm Carter. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the event coordinator here at Astoria Bookshop. We are the bookshop hosting this event. If you don't know who we are because you found us through the magic of the internet, we are a bookshop in Astoria, Queens. Before we get started, I wanted to go through just a few housekeeping things. You will have the opportunity to ask questions during the last 10-ish minutes of this. I will pop back in for that. If you have questions throughout, though, put them in the Ask a Question function down there at the bottom. It'll also pop up as an option when you type the question into the chat bar over on the right. Speaking of the chat, you can chat with each other over on the right. Go ahead, even right now, just say hi to Cristin, hi to Trish, give words of encouragement, get excited about this book. But we will kick you out if you participate in any trolling or any racial, ethnic, or homophobic slurs. Basically, we ask you to be nice and respectful towards one another. Finally, there is a button down there, right down there, at the bottom that offers the option to buy a copy of VIAL of Tears. So you can click that right there. We do ship to wherever you are, so this is a perfect opportunity maybe to buy a gift for a friend or to buy it for yourself, of course. So let me introduce our fantastic guests. Cristin Bishara, who uses she, her pronouns, is a writer of young adult fiction. She has worked as a copy editor and taught writing at the university level. Cristin lives in Florida with her family and dog. Trish Dollar, who uses she, her pronouns, is a writer, traveler, and dog rescuer. I love the dog theme we have going on. But not necessarily in that order. She is the author of Float Plan, her women's fiction debut, and The Sweet Spot. She has also written several YA novels, including the critically acclaimed Something Like Normal. When she's not writing, Trish loves sailing, camping, and avoiding housework. Me too. She lives in Southwest Florida with an opinionated herding dog and an ex-pirate. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Now, it's awesome to be here.
And now Cristin's going to take over for a second and read a bit of VIAL of Tears for us.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So it's a little bit glitchy. Okay, I think we're good. I am going to read a few pages, actually just 2 pages. And I don't think it's too spoilery. It's chapter 3. I tried to pick a section that's not going to give away too much, but kind of just gives you a flavor. And you kind of, you can tell from the flap copy that this is all happening. So I'm going to read 2 pages and then Trish and I are just going to chat. So this is chapter 3. And this is when Samira, main character, realizes that she's in the underworld. And I need these. I rolled off, she decided. It's okay. I rolled off. That's all. She'd fallen asleep on Rima's top bunk and slipped over the railing. She'd hit her head when she landed on the floor. She was dizzy, but fine. She just needed a minute to breathe. There was the smell of food. Mom must have gone to get pizza for lunch. Everything was fine. Rima, Sam whispered, opening her eyes and squinting. Her neck was stiff and her fingertips ached as if they'd been stung by bees. One of her shoes lay on its side nearby, and she put it back on with trembling hands. Slowly, her foggy vision cleared, and she saw that everything was not fine. There was no carpet underneath her. The floor was the right shade of gray, but it was stone. This was not her bedroom, not home. Around her, hidden in dark cubbies, statues of round-bellied women squatted as if giving birth. Rectangular columns created a maze of passageways. She looked up and found there was no roof, just a dusky sky, a smudge of purple and blue. Music carried faintly on the air. There was nothing familiar about this place, not one single thing. Sam stood up and gulped down a whimper, remembering the funnel, the ghost. Desperate, she turned in circles, taking jagged breaths. Rima, she whispered, terror pounding its way through her. She realized she was panting, hyperventilating, so she sat back down on the hard floor, her head spinning. Is this a dream? Where am I? She murmured. She put her fingers to her lips. Her voice, the words sounded strange. They felt strange. Waves of fear threatened to wash her back under and into unconsciousness, but she fought it. She had to figure out what had happened. Slowly, she forced herself to her feet, forced herself to walk. She had to find Rima. On either side of her, the walls were inlaid with hundreds of little colored tiles, mosaics. There was a woman wearing a feathered headdress, staring at her with orange, glassy eyes. A sailboat overflowing with fish, a golden sun, a field of flowers, a man with a beard surrounded by half-naked women. Sam took a slow, long breath through her nose and let it out through her mouth, hoping the dream would dissipate. But the longer she looked, the more intensely real it all became. Rima, are you here? She called tentatively. And then she clapped a shaking hand over her mouth, her tongue turning dry with fear. Now she knew why the words felt so different in her mouth. Whatever language she'd just spoken wasn't English.
Okay, I didn't even know where to look through that whole thing because I kept staring at you like enwrapped. So that's so good. So I think that you should probably, for those tuning in who don't know what your book is about, tell us. Give us the details.
Okay, so flap copy, basically, here's the cover. So it's the story of two sisters who are transported into the Phoenician underworld. So it's an underworld, but it is based on ancient Lebanon and Phoenician mythology. So I'm half Lebanese. My two main characters, Samira and Rima, are half Lebanese. And again, I don't want to give too much away. Sam receives a mysterious package from her great-grandfather. And in that package, there's a magical coin. And when she touches it, it summons its master from the underworld. He comes to claim it, and they get pulled into the underworld. So the book is an adventure in the underworld, them having to navigate their way through. There's ghouls and shapeshifters, and they have to figure out how to get back home and survive.
It's okay. So I have been in on this book since like the ground level.
Yeah.
But you, and I've told you this from the very beginning, like you have created such a fresh and different world. How did you come up with this? Where did you get this idea?
So in the back of the book, which is so great, I'm so grateful to Holiday House for they wanted to include this stuff in the back matter, and it was just like it was like the icing on the cake for me. So on the back of the book, I don't know how well you can see this. There's my author's note. Beyond that, they included my family and photographs. I don't know if you can see that. Can you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my great-grandfather Asad. There are more photographs. They're kind of small. There's my grandfather there. Am I pointing to the right guy? Yeah, there's my grandfather. So my great-grandfather, in the 1950s, he found a jug in his village in the Lebanon mountains, and it had ancient coins in it. So I grew up hearing about these coins, and what kid wouldn't be fascinated because, it's like buried treasure. So
right.
Grew up listening to stories about the old country, the village, these coins. And my dad was always interested in the Phoenicians. He was always reading about them, talking about them. So the coins were definitely the initial inspiration. I mean, so we have these coins in our family. There's 14 of them all together. They're Roman and Greek. They're like 2,000 years old. And in the book, Samira receives a mysterious package from her great-grandfather, It's got a jug in it. The jug has coins inside of it. She breaks the jug open accidentally and finds the coins. So, I mean, like, it's kind of based on a real story,
Yeah.
which is crazy to say because it's, you know, it's obviously it's complete fantasy, but the inspiration for it actually comes from an actual collection of ancient coins from Lebanon.
That is so cool. That is
Yeah.
so cool. So I've got to ask, like, what kind of research did you do for this? Like, there's not a lot of information about the Phoenicians, at least not that I'm aware of. So, like, how did you get there?
So, like, that was actually a blessing and a curse because there's not a ton. I mean, like, oddly enough, the Phoenicians are generally given credit for founding the alphabet, the modern alphabet. But we really don't know that much about their language. Like, if you think about things that survive the test of time, we just have inscriptions in stone, and there's not a whole lot of them. Like, they're basically, like, if you think about what would be left of us, there's tombstones and there's statues. And so you cannot learn a language based on that kind of limited inscriptions. So we have like a very pieced together idea of their language. A lot of what we know is actually through other civilizations, that, you know, things that the Egyptians wrote about them. Anyway, so I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of research. The fact that there's not a ton allowed me a lot of poetic license. So I was able to fictionalize a lot without feeling like I was deviating from actual mythology, because, you know, like Egyptian mythology, there are some very established stories in other mythologies. But with this, I did have quite a bit of leeway, which was great in a way. I mean, I used as much as I possibly could. I did stick to as much research-based information that I could, but at the same time, obviously, I mean, it's fantasy, so.
That's really cool. How long did it take you to write Vial of Tears?
Yeah.
And how many versions have there been?
This was a question I got asked to in an interview that I did. Somebody asked, what came first, the story or the title? And I was like, oh my gosh, I had the worst, absolute worst titles.
The title did not come first.
The title did not come first. My first working title was just called The Passage. I mean,
oh gosh, that's right.
Not good. What was the question?
How long have you been working? How long did it take you? Like, how long?
So I was actually trying to think of this the other day too. It was like 6 years ago, because I gauge everything by the age of my children. So my youngest is 10, and we were on vacation in Maine, and I brought I probably have it like right behind me. Yes. This is the book that I read like 1,000 times. I brought this with me on vacation. Started flipping through it. I knew that there was an idea. I knew that there was something there. Rose was 4, so that was 6 years ago. So the research, drafting, revising, my agent sending it out, getting it under contract, finalizing the contract, and then it was delayed because of COVID. So it was actually supposed to come out in the spring. So we were like running 6 months behind because of that. So 6 years from the time that I started jotting down notes to it actually being in my hands finally.
Yay.
But yeah,
I'm super excited. I have been a champion of this book since the first time you told me. And I think we met before that, but I really feel like what like bonded us was the fact that we were both struggling with ideas. Like I was working on Float Plan when you were working on Vial, and we've really taken almost the same amount of time, you know, for these books to come out. It's just wild.
Yeah. So for anybody wondering, so Trish and I have been friends for a long time. So we actually met when Relativity came out, which is my first book, came out in 2013. And that's when Something Like Normal came out, right?
No, it was Where the Stars Still Shine came out in 2013.
Okay, because we did a signing event together on Sanibel.
That's right.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think I had Where the Stars Still Shine for that one. But what I do remember is like we were both with the same publisher, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, like
Yeah.
there's someone from my own my publisher who literally lives near me. I have to track her down, and I
Yeah.
don't remember like if I reached out to you or you reached out to me.
It was Rebecca at the bookstore. So Rebecca at Macintosh Books and Paper on Sanibel Island, which is a fabulous bookstore if you're ever on Sanibel.
Yeah.
It's such a nice, lovely bookstore. So Rebecca and I have been friends forever. And she put us together. She told me, she was like, there's another author who lives nearby, same publisher, YA. You guys need to meet. So we did.
Yeah.
And that was 2013. Yeah.
And we've met up regularly ever since, even though you moved away. Boo.
Not that far. I'm not that far.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So we meet halfway now. I don't know, like it should be more often, but it's probably what, like every 3 months, maybe every 4 months, just depends.
Yeah, it needs to be more often, but you know, life happens. So being Lebanese, I can only imagine what your family gatherings are like when it comes to food.
Yeah.
Like, do you make Lebanese food regularly?
Yeah, I do. And there are recipes. There's well, you've had my hummus. You've had my hummus at least what, 2 or 3 times. I forced that on you.
Yeah, it's terrible. Don't share it with anybody.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I make tabbouleh hummus. I make lubia, which is basically green beans, with the Lebanese rice, which is super easy and delicious. You brown the little rice-shaped pasta first in butter. That's the key. Lots of butter. I make grape leaves, which are more work, but worth it. And gosh, I don't even know. What else do I make? My grandmother's Lebanese bread, her pita bread. I finally got that recipe somewhat mastered. You know how bread is. I don't know if you guys bake bread, but bread is like, I feel like you just never know how it's going to behave. But I finally got round, like loaves that are round, because before I would they were the most misshapen loaves, but they puff up, the center gets full of air. It's so fun to watch in the oven. And that's what makes the pocket in the middle, the pita pocket. That is the best bread with anything. So there are recipes in the back of VIAL of Tears. If you're going to try anything, the bread takes a little practice, but
you're in charge of the Lebanese food at our next retreat.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So Cristin and I have been doing retreats. How many have we done now?
Oh gosh.
So many.
Siesta Key, at least 3.
We did one in Fort Myers, and we've done at least 2 or 3 in Siesta Key, and then the one at Boca Grande. We've probably done and probably every time we were working on these books.
That's totally true. Yeah, so Trish and I, we definitely bonded over so Trish's new book is Float Plan, which came out in March, which is fabulous. And she's got another book coming out in March, which is a companion book.
Right.
Is that what you're calling it? It's not a sequel. It's a companion book.
It's not a sequel. I mean, we do find out the main characters in Float Plan make an appearance in The Sweet Spot, which is the second book. But they're not the main characters. So it is kind of a companion, and it follows in terms of chronological order, it happens after the events of Float Plan. So yeah, it's sort of a little bit it's a hint of a sequel, but it's not really. The main characters are not the main characters, and it's part of a 3-book series. So there will be more even. Yeah, that's what I will be working on at the retreat if I'm not done with 3. Yeah, because I need to get done with that soon. Yeah, I'll be going back to another manuscript that I've been working on for forever. So this is my question, and my next question is, what are your roots when it comes to writing? Like, I get this question a lot. I recently got an email from a fan who had written me when he was in middle school, and read one of my YA novels, and he wrote to just kind of let me know that, I mean, he literally just was kind of like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but now he's like in college and he's thinking about becoming a writer. And I was trying to explain to him, like, you don't have to study writing, but you did, right?
I did.
Tell us about your writing journey.
People have very strong feelings about MFAs. I have an MFA. I went to Kenyon College, which is known for its English department, and I was an English major. And I took my first creative writing classes there. I took fiction writing and poetry writing as a senior. So I didn't know early at Kenyon. I actually thought that I was going to go to law school. I almost went to law school. So
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, I was like ready to take the LSAT and go to law school.
Wow.
Instead, I chose the practical route and I got an MFA in poetry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Kudos to my parents for not completely freaking out.
I was going to say, did they give you a hard time about that?
Not really. I mean, I think they were sad that I went to a school in California. So I moved far, far away. Which was great. Loved it out there. So I did the MFA route and I'm glad that I did. I mean, I did my MFA was in poetry. That was my concentration, which I think makes me the writer that I am today because I am so particular about every single word. And I definitely learned that from poetry. So, I mean, it does slow me down. Trish and I have had this conversation before because we both revise as we go, which is, I have mixed feelings about my own writing process. It can be slow.
Well,
but it's what we do. It's what we do. So we revise as we go. I'm very picky about my words. So I definitely think that my MFA route and poetry, but it's probably just my writing style too. Like that's just inherently part of my personality. Like I'm picky about my words.
No, I do definitely understand. I think that's one of the reasons why I think that your writing resonates with me so well and so much, because we do kind of have the same writing style in terms of like, we are very picky over our words. And when you really think about it, the people who are like, I bang out a rough, get the dirty first draft done, and then I go back and revise. And like, how many revisions and how long does it take? When we write slowly, are we still getting to the finish line at the same time? If someone takes 8 months and writes six drafts, how is that different than us taking 8 months to write one draft?
Right.
But,
right. It's like the turtle and the hare kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's no right or wrong way. Like everybody has their process. Everybody has their way of doing things. And, what works for one person is not going to work for another. You get there, the main thing is like, you just have to finish. Like you have to keep going back to it. You have to keep revising it. You have to keep adding to it. This was actually something that, I remember from my MFA program. There was a poet who came, his name was Gregory Orr. Absolutely loved him. He came in and gave a guest lecture one day, and he was talking about how some poets or writers in general, they create by adding. So like you would start with sort of like a skeleton and you add to it. And then there are other artists and writers who start with like a block of marble and then you chip away at it. So you're either writing and creating by adding, or you're writing and creating by subtraction. So I feel like the people who like can crank out a 300-page draft in no time, they're the ones that like end up with like this big block, and then they have to chip away at it to find the story underneath. Whereas you and I are very carefully adding tiny little pieces until we finally have a complete piece of work.
I don't know about you though, but this usually comes back to bite me when I have to do edits and like I have fit everything in like a Tetris block. And when the editor's like, could you maybe expand a little right here? I'm like, no. How am I going to fit more words in there? It flows from one sentence that is important to another one. Like what? I can't just, and so that gets frustrating. And then you have to sit with that for a while and go, okay, maybe I just need to rewrite that whole part. So, but it's hard for people like us to like be like, no, I can't put more words in there. I've said the words that I want to say.
Yeah, you mess up the flow at that point. Yeah.
Yep. So because we're in friends in real life as well as, writer friends, I know that you have had to balance being a writer with being a mom. And like, what does your writing life look like? Like, where do you carve out that time?
There are no 2 days that are the same. Like, I don't have any kind of like set schedule. VIAL of Tears, I wrote everywhere. Like I took my laptop to my kids' dance studio, and while the other parents were chit-chatting, I was completely antisocial on my laptop working on the manuscript. I took my laptop to her YMCA basketball practices, sat on the floor, same thing. Sorry, not talking to anybody, just working on my computer. So I don't know. It's like, I fit it in where I can. My kids are getting a little bit older now, so theoretically I have bigger blocks of time, but I think I'm so used to working like that now that I still kind of do it. Like I just, I don't know. I work on the couch. I work on the back patio. I work when we like meet up at Panera. I just kind of piece it together. I jot down notes if I have ideas, and then I go back to it later. I do that a lot. Like I'll go into a manuscript and just add margin notes when I have ideas. Because if I don't have time to get to it in that moment, at least I have like a marker for myself. I'm like, okay, when I go back to this manuscript, I need to address this scene. I want to add this. I need to, do whatever. So I would say that like, I am definitely not the person who sits down and works from like 9 to 3 every day while my kids are in school. I might still put that much time in, like by the end of the week, if you add it all up, but I'm not the sit in the chair for 6 hours straight person.
Right. And I think that's valid. Like, that's another thing where, you hear this, like writers have to write every day or, get your butt in the chair. And it's like, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. So I think if there's anybody who, who's watching, who's an aspiring writer, you write when you have a chance. You don't, sometimes that's the only option that you have is to write when you can.
For sure. And like, I think the thing for people to keep in mind too, who are trying to write an entire novel that's like 85,000 words, do the math, like 250 words a day adds up really fast. Like if you just do that every day, and 250 words is like nothing, that's a page basically. It might take us a little longer, but I'm
laughing so hard because there's some days that I don't even get 100 words, and I feel like I've accomplished something just getting any words down. But
well, there are days that you subtract. Those are my favorite. Like when you look at your word count and then you're like, oh, all I did today was delete stuff.
It's going backwards. Yeah. I know. And I think there's been more than one retreat that we've had. We've invited other writers and, like we all separate and we write. And then afterwards, a couple of them are like, yeah, I wrote 6,000 words today. Oh yeah. I did like 7,500 words. And I'm like,
right. I know.
If I could do that in a week, I would feel really accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. So,
but I think that goes back that they've built that big block that they can start chipping down to the, to the real heart of the story. But I just don't have that many words inside of me at the time.
Right. I know. I'm the same way. Yeah. Relativity was 65,000 words. I feel like, I don't know. The manuscript that I'm working on is like 55,000 words. I think, when it's done, it'll be longer than that, but I write slim first drafts.
Apparently, I write slim final drafts too.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
my whole clock around 60,000 words. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, as far as fantasy novels go, too, like Vial of Tears is not gigantic. You know, I mean, it's I don't know, it's probably like 85,000 words. I'm not sure. So, you know, it's like 300-page novel. So
yeah,
you know.
no, and I mean, I think that's good because, you know, there are a lot of teenagers who won't be overwhelmed by that.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of size, because sometimes, you know, you get that big doorstop of a fantasy and you're like, how am I ever going to read that? You know, so
Right.
it may be good for reluctant readers. And I think one of the other things that I like about yours is I think it's really refreshing is that it's not romance heavy. You know, like there's so much YA fantasy that's very romance driven, and that's great. I'm definitely not knocking it because I am a romantic at heart, and I'm like, give me all the romance. But I love that it's really not. It's very romance light, and so if you have a reader who isn't really into that, like I know that my daughter, who's 26, who's not a romance reader, will love your book. She will love it.
Yeah, we've had this conversation too at our, because Trish, like, she can write the scenes, you know, like, I mean, she's the master of writing like the steamy, kissing, heart racing.
Give me all the kissing books.
Yeah. And so like when I like dip my toe into that, like if we're ever at a, you know, Panera or writing retreat together, I'm like, Trish, like, how do I do this?
It's really not that hard. But
yeah, no, it's funny. I do feel like things have changed though in the YA world, like the expectation for that there has to be romance, because when Relativity came out in 2013, my editor actually had me add a chapter so that there was more of like physical interaction between Ruby and George, the main character, and her boyfriend. So I actually added a chapter so that there would be more romance. And I feel like that pressure has lessened since 2013. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel like there's no longer like that expectation that there has to be strong romance. So
no, I'm getting that too. And I mean, I think that as YA has diversified, which it still has a ways to go, but as it's diversified, you know, like the story itself has become like the focus and less so the romance. And I mean,
right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it just, for me, it also just sort of evolved naturally. I don't set out to do that when I'm writing a book. Like, I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to avoid romance on purpose. You know, like I don't want my main character to have any romantic interest. Like, I don't start writing with that intent. It's just how the story evolves for me. So, you know, I mean, this girl and her sister are in the underworld with a lot of unsavory dudes and, you know, just characters.
And dudes who have been around for a millennium.
Yeah. Like how old is this guy really? But, you know, I mean, her main concern is survival and getting out, saving her sister, you know, navigating all of like the devious liars and just trying to figure out, you know, who to trust and piecing together clues. I just didn't feel like, I guess in the end, like there's like, when do you have time for that? Like, where's there time for kissing? Right. I don't know. Is there time? Like, we're running from monsters. I don't know.
No, I know. I can fit romance just about anywhere. But I mean, I'm struggling with this myself because I mean, you know how I feel about writing romance, and I mean, like, it's literally in my wheelhouse, and all of my books have included romance, but I'm literally considering a fantasy and probably an adult fantasy with no romance. And I literally reached the point where I'm like, you know, when you think about it, like characters always skew so young, even in like adult fantasy, you know, they're still kind of young. And I'm like, okay, how can I stop myself from like wanting the romance to happen? And so I was like, wait a minute, what if one of my characters was my age and the other character is young? I don't ship that. I don't want that. Like, I don't really want a May-December fantasy romance. So I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity for a platonic, you know, and I've actually seen a couple recent, like examples. So I'm like, this can be done and can be done well. So I'm like, maybe that's where it's going.
Yeah.
Maybe we need more 50-year-old, YA, or not YA, but 50-year-old fantasy heroines.
Why not?
Who, why not is right. Like there's a lot of women out there who might be interested in that, into seeing their own age. Right. I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, wait, I would kind of like that. So
is this what you're going to be working on at the retreat? Are we coming back to No, you have to. No, you've got to. You're on deadline. I
have to finish book 3, or my editor will probably, murder me. And then there will be no more Trish Dollar books. When I say that, and like she's the least, she's like, no, I would never murder you. Like she's like, I would have already done that last year when you were late with the book.
So late though. I mean, like they're coming out 12 months apart.
I know, but right? I'm still, but it's like it was due. The Sweet Spot was due in November, and I really started working on it in November. So I turned it in January. So like we haven't talked about when the next one is due, but I'm like, if the Sweet Spot is coming out in March of next year, then I'm assuming that I need to have the other one done like soon.
Yeah.
So I really
do you have a working title for that one yet?
It's called Off the Map. Right now, that's what I'm calling it. I don't know. I mean, it's a good title, so it may stick. But it does feature the brother of the main character from Float Plan. So like anyone who's watching who maybe has read Float Plan and fell in love with Keen, you get his brother Eamon, and so like he raises the bar. Like Keen said it. So Keen said it, but Eamon has raised it. I think that he might actually end up being more popular than Keen, and that's saying something because Keen's pretty popular.
Keen is amazing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that actually, like, I feel like that's a good thing for us to discuss, is like, how do we come up with titles? Because I was answering this question for an interview, what came first, the title or the book, or the idea for the book. And in the end, what I ended up doing was I got index cards and I just wrote down keywords and I put them all over my kitchen floor. Like any word that seemed like a powerful, good word that could be in a title. And I just shuffled them around on my kitchen floor. It was like,
it's like one of those memes. It's like those memes, like fill in a blank, blank and blank.
Yes, it was. Yeah, because like if you haven't noticed, like, fantasy titles are like blank of blank and blank. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's like they're and but that tells the reader immediately this is fantasy.
Right.
So I started playing with that. I think it was Ship of Purple Sails for a while, and then it was Coin of Blood and Feathers. So
yeah, that one was a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot.
But I mean, I've done that too. I have been there. My second YA novel, Where the Stars Still Shine, the original title, my working title for that was All That Was Lost. And I thought it was a great title, but my publisher didn't like, they're like, no. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand what's wrong with this. So I had a friend who she and I literally scoured song lyrics and were like private messaging back and forth. And then all of a sudden she sent me Where the Stars Still Shine. And I was like, that is it. That's it. That's the one. So
what song did that come from?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't know that it did. I think we were just we were on the track of stars and shining and then it showed up. But,
so like my 10-year-old's like totally into Mad Libs. She has been for a few years now. And I feel like sometimes writing titles is like just filling in Mad Libs. Like, oh, let's try this. I need a verb. I need a noun. I need an adjective.
That reminds me. What book was I working on when we did have Mad Libs? And I asked it was one of the iterations of Float Plan that that scene never made it, that they were playing Mad Libs, and I had your daughter filling in the.
Oh yeah, that's right. You actually did.
All she kept saying was "poop." She's just like "poop." So every single Mad Lib that I had her do, it was poop.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think I kind of like talked you into doing the Mad Lib scene on the boat. It had to have been float plan.
Yeah, no, I got rid of it. They play Scrabble now.
Yeah. So funny.
That's hilarious. But
that was one of the days that you lost word count because you had to delete that scene. I'm sorry.
And you know, it's possible that I cut it and copied and pasted it somewhere and that it'll resurface someday.
Someday when you guys read a Trish Dollar novel and there is a Mad Lib scene in there, that was my idea.
It was. Yeah, but I mean, I had the same thing. Float Plan, the original title, the very, very original title was Second Wind. And then it became Apparent Wind. And Apparent Wind is like an esoteric sailing term that it's really hard to even just explain to like regular folks, let alone like apply it to the human condition in a way that understandable. So I finally, when I changed it to Float Plan, it worked better. It doesn't translate though into other languages. So like we sold foreign rights for the book and there's no other country in which it's called Float Plan because that's like kind of a uniquely American thing that like you're technically supposed to file a float plan with the Coast Guard and like, you know, other countries don't necessarily do that. So the foreign editions are, we've had this conversation too. It's like, it's so amazing. It's so amazing to see your book in translation, but at the same time, it's always kind of a surprise. Like, because you know, the title doesn't translate, or like, you know, sometimes the art for the cover is, I don't know, just different. Like, you know, you're not quite expecting. But yeah, that's awesome. It's fun. So audiobook, I just want to like get this in here because we're talking about other editions. So the audiobook for Vial of Tears also released today. So if anybody loves to listen instead of read, that is available. And that is fun. Have you had the opportunity to listen to voice auditions when you've had audiobooks done? Yes.
That's so much fun.
Yes.
So both for Relativity and for Vial of Tears, I've been able to listen to voice actors with their, they send in clips reading and you get to, you know, hear a sample. And I'm so thrilled with the narrator that they chose for Vial of Tears. Her name is Aisha K. And because I was like seriously stressing for whoever they hired, because if you've read Vial of Tears, I know a lot of you just got the book today. There's an invented Phoenician language in there that is a mashup of actual ancient languages. It's going to be one of those things that you just kind of skim over when you're reading it because it's like unpronounceable. So, I mean, they're actual ancient languages that I pulled from, but I was like, oh my gosh, whoever has to read this for the audio is going to be like ready to kill me. But she did it amazingly. She's fluent in Arabic, so she was able to like pull from her. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
So like they picked the perfect person to do this so that she was able to just be like, yeah, you know, sounds like this, or, you know, however she interpreted it. And I was like, okay, this is like a dream come true, because I was stressing about whoever had to tackle the pronunciation. And it was so funny too, because my agent was like, well, maybe you could like do recordings and send in like, you know, a pronunciation guide for some of these phrases and sayings. And I was like, you know, like, I don't think I would do a very good job. Like, I'm not qualified for the audio for this book.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I'm excited because the narrator for Float Plan, who I absolutely loved, is doing the narration for The Sweet Spot as well.
Oh, that's nice. So you have like consistency.
Yeah. I'm hoping that she will do the whole series because she was fantastic. Like, I reached a point. Have you listened to yours through yet?
I haven't no, because it just came out today. So I've only listened to like samples.
When you listen, you will get lost and you will forget that you wrote the book.
Yeah.
Well,
It's funny because people are like, "Oh, are you going to read Vial of Tears now that you have?" I'm like, I've read this book. I've read this manuscript 50 million times. I never want to read it again. However, I am looking forward to listening to the audio because that's a whole different experience.
Yeah, I'm totally downloading it because I want to listen to it while I'm on the treadmill. So yay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's super fun. Yeah, so Astoria just posted the link for the audio book too. So if anybody's interested, yeah. So I think we have like 5 more minutes or so before we open it up for questions. So I just also
what's next too?
Yeah, Macintosh is here. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
So just if there's any Florida people, I'm doing an in-person signing at Tombolo Books in St. Petersburg, which is a really nice independent bookstore. That is Tuesday, October 19th, I believe. Check my website. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I think it's the 19th. And then Rebecca's bookstore on Sanibel, Macintosh Books, I will be there. I believe it's December 4th. Is that right, Rebecca? I think it's the 4th. It's a Saturday, and it includes a lunch, and it's a ticketed event. So make sure that you RSVP for that, because Rebecca only has a certain number of slots available since we go to a restaurant for part of the presentation. But actually, Rebecca, I think that we also go back to the bookstore for signings. So if there's not enough room at the lunch, and I'm assuming that people can still come to the bookstore for the signing part, I'm assuming. And yeah, so those are my 2 signing events in Florida in person. So if there are any Florida people, just wanted to let you guys know about that. I don't know. What else can we talk about?
What are you working on next?
So I think what I'm going to take with me to the retreat is I am working. It's kind of funny considering what happened yesterday. It's a Florida near future survival story that's got like sort of Black Mirror inspiration, and the system goes down. So the kids are the teen main characters, the protagonists, are stranded in a really weird futuristic Florida wilderness, but they're also offline. So they have lost contact with anyone and everything. So
I love that one. I mean, I've been on, this is the beauty of being like your writing partner, is that I'm on the ground floor of all this stuff. Yeah. And I mean, the very first draft I read of this was fantastic. So I'm really curious to see where it goes and how it's evolved. And
it has changed a lot. There's definitely more sci-fi in it now. Yeah, I don't know. Are you guys interested in like a Florida dystopian near future survival story that's got like Black Mirror elements?
I think it sounds really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a full draft. I'm just messing with it. I feel like it needs like a little something before I send it to my agents. So, but I'm close.
Cool. So currently we have 2 questions from the audience. If anyone watching would like to add any, feel free to do that, but we'll have 2 to start. But Penny asked, do either of you have any advice for aspiring writers? So both of you could answer this.
You go first.
Advice for aspiring writers. I think like for me, it helps to remember that this is like more of a marathon than a sprint. So, just if you think about it as a process, and I mean, I feel like I'm still learning how to write a novel. Like it's different every time. So pace yourself, give yourself a lot of forgiveness, give yourself a lot of pats on the back. You have to celebrate every time you write a sentence that you're proud of. The nice rejections that you get, I'm telling you, like I still have letters from editors, emails and letters from editors and agents that were rejections, but they were nice rejections. And they had just like a line of encouragement in there that was like, whatever they may have said, they just like let me know that there was something there that they felt had promise. So even if you are getting turned down by agents or publishers, if you're getting any kind of encouragement at the professional level, know that that's like, you know, something that you need to keep near and dear to your heart to keep you going. That's worth celebrating. And I would say back before COVID, and hopefully again soon, going to like conferences and networking. For me, that really helped. I went to a lot of SCBWI conferences in Florida, and I met a lot of great people that way. You're able to get your work in front of editors and agents. They do paid critiques. So I would say just like get yourself out there, put your work in front of other people, get their feedback. Critique groups are great if you can find the right people to work with. Yeah, those are my main bits of advice. Trish?
I think, you know, like the actual down in the trenches, the writing, I think that it's important to read in and out of the genre that you want to write. I mean, you know, it's nice to see what other people are doing. Some people, like I have worked with writers who, you know, who we're still in the learning process of writing. And, you know, sometimes you say, okay, I like this idea, but go read the way other writers write, because you don't have to copy their style, but you can see like what a published novel looks like. And then, you know, like apply that. But I think it's also important to read outside of, like, if you're writing fantasy, don't just read fantasy. Like some of the best devices and, you know, like just really interesting tricks of the trade that I've learned from reading outside. You know, I write romance, but reading literary fiction might give you a clue. Reading nonfiction. I mean, you know, like one of the inspirations for Flow Plan was actually Wild by Cheryl Strayed, which is a memoir. I mean, but her writing style is so, you know, it was such a wonderful narrative. It read like fiction. And so, you know, there's so many places where you can learn. And if you don't have the opportunity to take classes, you can kind of teach yourself how to write by reading widely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just to jump on that point as well, like one of the mistakes that I made early on was that I was reading books that I had read as a kid as inspiration. You really need to read what's current, because the rules are always changing. The trends are changing. What people are looking for it changes, it evolves. So, and I've seen that when I've taught writing classes too, that people tend to gravitate towards what they read as kids that they loved, which is great. But that tends to be in an era that is no longer relevant in terms of getting your stuff published today. So that can always be your favorite book and it can always be dear to you, but it's not necessarily the best thing to use as an example of what you need to be doing today to get published.
Exactly. We have moved toward a more inclusive language and more inclusive stories. You know, we're not there yet all the way, but, you know, we're definitely much closer than some of the things that we read and kind of cringe a little bit at, you know, in the past. And so it doesn't mean that those are not well-written stories. It's just they were written in a different time. And now we need to be more cognizant of what's happening, you know, in the present.
Right. Exactly.
Perfect. And I hope that helped Penny. Is there a character you are most excited for readers to meet and why? And Casey asked this one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I got this question. Ashman? Really? Okay.
Yes, he's so interesting. He's so interesting to me.
He is interesting. He is
very
a complicated dude. He's complicated. Yes. Yeah. There's actually a scene that I really love. It's a conversation between Sam and Ashman, and they're having this conversation about hope. And Sam is like, hope is all I have. She is just determined. She's determined to save her sister and to get out of the underworld. And Ashman has a much more interesting take on hope. He tells her that there's two kinds of hope. It's kind of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of the conversations that we're having now about toxic positivity. Like, is it always a good thing? Is it inherently good? Is hope inherently good? I love that conversation. I feel like it sums up so much about Ashman. He's got he's got so many conflicting feelings about what his mission is, what his goals are, what his destiny is. Yeah, I don't know. I love all the characters. I mean, it is like, people say this, and I know it's a cliche, but it is kind of like trying to pick one of your own kids. I love Teth so much. I love Teth. I love Zane. She's just wily and smart, and she knows what she wants. And I love Rima because she's a smart mouth, and you know, it was fun writing dialogue for her. She's, I don't know, it's so hard to pick. It's a pretty big cast of characters, and I feel like all of the characters are unique. Like, I do love the fact that I feel like they all have very distinct voices and personalities.
Definitely.
Yeah. So,
Definitely.
I mean, I even like the bad guys. So, I mean, most of them. Some of them are terrible. Some of them are just absolutely terrible. But, you know, that was actually, okay, so this is like another little writing, I don't know, advice or whatever. But I think a lot of times writers will start with their protagonist and what their protagonists need. Sometimes I like to think about the story in terms of what the villain wants and what the villain needs, because it gives you a more three-dimensional villain, because I feel like that's an easy thing to fall into, is writing a two-dimensional villain, just, you know, flat bad guy or bad person, or not even person. I mean, like, the villains can be, you know, the world itself can be villainous. But if you start with the villain and what they want, that's the character that's throwing up all of the roadblocks for your protagonist. So the roadblocks then become organic. It's like, okay, she has to figure this out because the villain created this for her. And why did the villain want it? So I kind of like to look at it that way sometimes, just to sort of unravel it backwards, to see not necessarily what the protagonist wants and needs, but what's in her way, and why is that in her way? And it's because of what the villain wants or needs.
Okay, you've just helped me like huge. Like, I'm gonna go make notes now. I got work. I have work to do now.
I hope everyone's taking notes right now.
That was great advice. And now I'm like, I literally want to go write.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just a different way of looking at it. So it helps sometimes.
I think it's a really smart way of looking at it. So those are all of our questions. For the two of you, a question from me is, where can we find you on the internet, and any upcoming projects you might have? I know we kind of covered this, but if you want to like reiterate them one more time.
I am on Instagram. That is definitely the place where you can find me most often. And I do have a Books by Cristin Bishara Facebook page that I post to occasionally, but Instagram is definitely my preferred social media. My website as well has been freshly updated. It has all of my events. There's a book trailer for VIAL of Tears that I just posted today. There's a really cool book trailer for Relativity too, if anybody wants to read my older book. All the links are, you know, everything's just been updated. So website, Instagram, Facebook, Books by Cristin Bishara on Facebook.
So I'm basically much Trish Dollar all across the board. I don't have my Facebook is basically like people I know in real life. So it's not the best source for me, but Twitter and Instagram, definitely I love Instagram. And my website, trishdollar.com.
Perfect.
And my next book is called The Sweet Spot. Sweet is like a hotel suite, and it comes out on March 8th of 2022.
So get excited, pre-order that. Yes. As a reminder, right down there is the link to buy a copy of VIAL of Tears. We do ship to wherever you are. So if you are in Canada or you're in Florida, we ship there. So you can buy your copy there. And that's it. Coming up for Astoria's events in the next week or so. On Thursday, we have an event with Dr. Casey Guerin, who is going to talk about her book, It's Probably Nothing, which is a self-help book about deciphering health information on the internet. And it's going to be a workshop. So we're going to like go through how to tell what is fake and what is fiction when reading about like health stuff like WebMD type of things on the internet. So that's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. So you should join us. All right. Thank you both. And thank you everyone for watching. This has been so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Yes. Have a great night.
Thank you.